Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Hard Ticket. This is not your typical episode because we just came off of a 5-week streak where we talked about nothing but horror movies, which is what now? That's like what 25% of our show.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, we are a young podcast, and we wanted to do a little bit of a retrospective because I don't know. This is like a mini series that we just did. You know?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, this episode is not your father's hard ticket. I think is fair to say. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the phrasing it that way, where it's like this is like 25% of our show, our very young show that we've already because we did our 10 top 10s. It was sort of like a little mini celebration of the fact that we made it to 10 episodes, which is exciting.
And we had to crunch that one a little bit too. I mean, we discovered as we recorded how ambitious it was, even though if we just did the math beforehand, it would have been very simple.
We were going to talk about 100 movies on the pod. We're like, yeah, we can get it down to like an hour 20, right? Like, yeah. And now we're, doing a little retrospective, just sort of a debrief in some way of the past month, our Hard Ticket to Halloween special, which, was a no-brainer for us. Like, we knew that October rolls around, we got to talk about horror movies. So, of course, we turned to our horror matchups, which initially, I think we had a little bit of trouble of finding 5 matchups for ourselves.
Yeah, I don't know whose idea it was to do a whole month where we talk about horror movies, because I don't think, there are matchups. We've got our Hard Ticket Google sheet that we've alluded to it several times.
Yes.
And there are some matchups on there that are as old, even older than the podcast, actually. And horror was not a genre that had a whole lot of representation on that list. So it wasn't because we had a whole bunch of movies selected. I think it was just like there were a couple of movies that we were like, okay, here's this movie. What would we put it up against? And I think it was really fun because with horror movies, because I think a lot of the same tropes get used, but the context kind of gets shifted around. Some of these movies, it almost feels like you can't have a false matchup with,
Yeah, you have to be very particular about what you're going to pick. And we played fast and loose with our last episode. But I feel like every other matchup that we had here was pretty well matched. I'm not going to say like obvious matches, but things that you would hear and be like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Instead of like, okay, pitch it to me. Because it, which we do. We pitched our Jaws and Halloween episode, and hopefully the pitch worked out. But we also, this past month, we took our first request from one of our listeners, Hannah, not Moyer, Hannah Williams.
Yes, yeah. Sorry for dead naming you.
We're dead naming Hannah. Yeah, she's a married woman.
We love you, Owen, and actually we'd love to have you on the podcast as well.
Yeah, hell yeah. You might be on our Spirited Away Star Wars
episode. Oh, that's right. Actually. That's right. Yeah, we're doing that. I know.
Little teaser.
I know. I said we might
next
not,
year.
but yeah, we're doing it.
Yes.
And we also said that we didn't have a matchup for Jaws, and then you were like, actually, maybe this is my Tristan impression. Maybe we'll do like a Halloween. What do you think? And I was like, that's asinine. I don't understand the connection there. No, I think I do think that was a really solid matchup at the end of the day.
Yeah, I appreciate the impression, I guess. A little behind the scenes of Hard Ticket headquarters. Jeff's always doing impressions of me.
Hey guys, it turns out the shark was a vagina.
I sound like a South Park character.
Hey guys, hey guys, oh my god.
Yeah.
I can do a Jeff impression too. Hey, you're back. You're welcome back to Hard Ticket. I'm the hostess with the mostest.
That's a good Beck Bennett.
No, anyways. Yeah, sorry. We are getting so derailed.
Yeah, well, that's what it's for. We haven't. We don't have.
This is just a bonus. This is just a bonus.
We don't have to cram for this bullshit. We don't have 2 movies to get through in like an hour 20. We can say whatever the hell we want.
Jizz.
Yeah, well, we took our first request. It was from our friend Hannah. Shout out to Hannah again, who we should probably shout out more than anybody else on this podcast, because we love her so much. But we put Hannah. You wanted us to do House of a Thousand Corpses, and I think I would say 3 out of 5 of the matchups that we had at least I started to second guess it the closer we got to
Yes,
recording. And
that's
the
true.
one I second guessed the most was our Hostel of a Thousand Corpses episode, which
Yes.
ultimately we didn't deviate. We stuck to the original matchup. I remember when I was texting you about it, pitching other matchups because I had watched both movies. And, you know, like this this month, I am in grad school right now. I got really busy at certain points, and I don't think we are as ahead with the podcast as we wanted to be when we started doing it. But I remember texting Tristan, and Tristan was like, "Yeah, man, you got to make up your mind because I got like 2-3 more movies I got to watch by the end of the week. So, I want to get one of these out of the way right now." So I still think our biggest missed opportunity, and this will be if we ever revisit a matchup, which I don't have a lot of interest in doing right now, it will be putting Hostel against Eurotrip. I lament the loss of such a good pair. There's both of these movies, despite being completely different genres, have a sexual assault scene on a train with Fred Armisen as the perpetrator. And
you made me watch that. You were like, look up.
I was like, okay, all right,
we're gonna do
the original matchup, but I need you to watch this scene first and let me know if we're doing the right thing. And you were like,
yeah.
Excuse me. I don't know.
Excuse me. Yeah,
it's just such a 1-to-1 horror to comedy matchup. We're not going to get another one like that, man.
No, I think it was good. I see the thing when it came down to the House of a Thousand Corpses and Hostel matchup. That was initially my idea because Hannah really wanted us to do House of a Thousand Corpses, and I'd never seen it, and I'd never seen Hostel, but I knew that they had a kind of a similar premise where it's like the teenagers go on a trip and they end up becoming the thing that they're out to partake in, kind of deal. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. We'll just go with that. Well, we also had a guest on that episode, Jeffrey Scott from the Head on a Stick podcast. So we knew that we couldn't just shake things up willy-nilly because we also had a third party and we wanted to be good hosts and not, throw a curveball at Jeffrey Scott. And you pitched a couple different matches. You said House of Wax, I think, first.
Well, yeah, because House of a Thousand Corpses is like, it's that haunted house attraction made into a movie, and House of Wax is also that amusement park kind of thing.
And we were gonna go with like I think 2006 House of Wax, because there's a couple.
The one with
different
Paris
ones.
Hilton,
yeah, the one with Paris, exactly. So I did feel like that was period appropriate, and I was willing to go with it. I've seen House of Wax. I didn't feel like I had as much to say about it. I was kind of more intrigued to watch Hostel, which was actually on my watch list. So I was still pushing for Hostel, and then you hit upon the Eurotrip Hostel comparison because you watched Hostel first, and you were like, "Oh my god, like this would be brilliant with Eurotrip because of the sexual assault scene on the train and the other and the other
everything
stuff.
else." Yeah,
No, you're
comedy.
right.
Yeah,
you're right. You are 100% right. I do think that's an awesome matchup, and I would totally be down to do it at a future date, and we probably will. We probably will get to it eventually. But then it was just like, okay, what are we going to replace Hostel with? And we just decided not to do it in the end. Here's the thing. You were drinking and you were trying to be persuasive because you were drinking.
Well, okay, all right.
You're being pushy with me.
I've talked to my therapist about that. Yeah. Well, okay. And also I was bringing it up to Jeff because, we brought Jeff and Aaron, co-hosts of Head on a Stick.
Yes.
That was always the plan, was to bring them both on, do a little crossover. And Jeff, he's probably seen more horror movies than you and me combined. And he just kind of was like, House of Wax, I just don't think I have a whole lot of interesting things to say about that one.
Yeah.
He's not a huge Hostel fan either, but I think he was saying that it was a better matchup, which ultimately, I agree. We got more of a dichotomous thing there because I do think Hostel is a very brutal, bare bones kind of movie, which is the total opposite of House of a Thousand Corpses.
Which is all frills.
Yeah, I'm very happy with kind of where we ended up.
Yeah, I think that was a good one. Our next sort of difficult matchup was, so we knew we wanted to talk about The Descent because that's Aaron Radcliffe's favorite film, and we knew he'd have something to say about it. And it was tough at first kind of picking something to pair with it. And I hit upon the Barbarian thing because initially there's just like the the subterranean aspect
Well,
of
yeah, because that
everything.
was one that you said it, and I was like, that makes sense. Just
Yeah, it just on a gut
gut
level,
level.
on a gut
Yeah.
level. Yeah. And the more we dug into it, the more it made sense. But there was maybe a brief moment where we were, I think maybe you talked about pairing it with
I talked about pairing it with the descent with the ritual.
the ritual. Yeah, that's right. And I think we even talked about that in the actual episode with Aaron. I think Aaron brought it up actually. So clearly there's merit there if both of you were feeling that. I've never seen the ritual, so I can't speak to that. But I think in the end we picked the right choice, and that ended up being honestly one of my favorite episodes we've ever recorded. And all three of our guests that we've had on this month were great, and I've really enjoyed our conversations with
Yeah,
them.
it's been a lot of fun. And I think what we did when Hard Ticket's very episodic. We talk about two movies in conversation with each other. That's a behemoth enough to talk about two movies within our targeted time span, let alone
Yeah,
four in our Russo slop episode. That almost killed me. But when we don't like Hard Ticket to Halloween gave us a way to kind of like have an extended conversation. And I think we kind of stumbled onto a little bit of like a history of horror thing. I think we solidified it in episode 2 when we started talking about that like mid 2000s era of horror that
yes,
isn't looked upon that fondly. And if we'd known that we were going to kind of to do that, I think in our first episode, which was two spoofs, we would have
yes,
talked more about their place in the timeline, because like spoofs are always in response to something that exists kind of universally, and Cabin in the Woods especially was like a pushback by Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard against the type of horror that we would cover in like the very next episode. And
yes,
yeah, I think what we ended up doing was kind of walking through, and then we had our House Evil Dead 2 matchup, which kind of plucked us out of our 3 episode streak from the 2000s. But yeah, I think it was interesting talking a little bit about like the A24 kind of elevated horror, how it sprung up from the where horror was at in the 2000s, which was it's still very contentious. A lot of people, if people say they don't like horror, they point to a lot of movies that they're like, oh, I don't like the gore, I don't like the torture, that kind of stuff, which is what was happening in the 2000s. And there's already pushback to the pushback where like I think it's so interesting that era, the 2000s. There's so many studios that are having an interesting place. Like that is the Disney weird period too. They start experimenting with CGI with movies like Dinosaur, Chicken Little. They move away from hand-drawn animation in movies like Atlantis and Treasure Planet. And none of those movies did well when they were released. And now in 2025, I see clips from all of them online, because you get the people who
mm,
grew up with those movies who are like, these need to be reevaluated right now. And we talked about Terrifier. The Terrifier series actually came up in my grad school seminar earlier today. But like Terrifier is kind of a response, I think, that these people who really liked these movies, they still have a place today in horror
yeah.
as it stands.
Yeah, we're seeing like a mix of like 90s and a little bit of like early 2000s nostalgia right now. And the splatter horror definitely kind of part and parcel with that. Yeah, the Terrifier thing has surprised me how much that has exploded. I watched the first two, and I wasn't really impressed. I have not seen the third one yet. Aren't those? It's like over 2 hours long, and it's like, I
An
mean, I guess
epic horror, yeah.
yeah, I guess excess is sort of the name of the game when you're talking about like the splatter stuff. So, it's it's got its audience. It's making money. So I think if I have one regret about this month, it's that I would probably reorder our episodes, like you were alluding to.
Yeah.
I think I would keep Jaws and Halloween at the end because I feel like there's such titans
That's our
of the
big
genre.
finish. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the big finish. You have to end with Halloween on Halloween, of course. And I also feel like it's just appropriate kind of going back to the start of what I would consider like modern horror trends. I would probably start off with House and Evil Dead 2, since these are like our earliest in the timeline. They are cult. They are kind of like pushing the boundaries a little bit, but they did have their influences later on. Jump into House of a Thousand Corpses and Hostel next, as we get into like kind of late 90s, early 2000s era. Then jump into our Tucker and Dale and Cabin in the Woods, our spoofs, because now we have enough context to sort of like say this is what we're responding to. And then we go into The Descent and Barbarian. I kind of made the argument that The Descent, even though it's a 2000s film, is maybe a little bit ahead of its time in a lot of ways, in terms of predicting like a sort of elevated horror trend. And Barbarian's on the other side of that. It's the most recent horror film that we spoke about. So I feel like that would have been a good, like, that would have been the order I would do it in if I had seen this trend, if you know, because we were laying out all of our episodes and trying to determine who we were going to be able to get on the show to guest and everything. So it didn't work out that way, but it's like one of those things that in retrospect we can plan for, and we can sort of direct you, the listener, through as our thought process. So
yeah. I had originally asked Aaron if he wanted to be on our Evil Dead 2 House episode, because I was on the Head on a Stick podcast when they covered The Evil Dead, which was my first time watching it. They like to have me on for some first time perspectives, because I don't know, they're very seasoned horror viewers. And I told him what other movies we were doing, and I was kind of surprised when he told me that The Descent was like his favorite horror movie, alongside Train to Busan. So, and I had a feeling that you were also leaning towards The Descent in that matchup. So I kind of like, I don't know, I felt like I had to do a little bit more, be a little more on the defensive in favor of Barbarian, which I had a feeling before we rewatched I was going to lean towards. And ultimately I chose as my hard ticket. And in that kind of like defensive research I was doing, I kind of like, I don't know, kind of revealed to myself Kreger's inspirations, which is, you know, he's from Whitest Kids You Know, got big in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Creepypasta is a big inspiration. That internet horror kind of stuff, you know, analog horror was big. And to me, I see a lot of that in Kreger's work, especially Barbarian, with like the mother, the basement, the threads that he's pulling on. I think it's cool, and I do think we're in a place now that we're past, I think we're past the elevated horror hump, partially because of people like Kreger who are pushing it forward and saying like there's room for all of it. You know, you can be, trauma can still be the villain, and it can also be a creature feature, and it can also be X, Y, and Z. And I think that's cool. And I think that, I don't know, I defend Kreger because I see a lot of people who are inherently contrarians who, I don't know, push back on his stuff. And I'm like, what's that chip on your shoulder about? I don't know. And horror is not particularly either of our genres, which is also why we wanted to bring some more guests on this past month.
Yeah, I would say it's probably more my genre than it is your genre. But yeah, I guess we're not like particularly horror guys at the end of the day. I'm excited to see the trends that emerge from horror. I mean, what do we have this year? We had Weapons and Sinners, were like two of the biggest films this year.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Terrifier movies. We're talking about, like, you look at like a movie like Together that came out this year, and it was like, if that came out 10 years ago, it would be like the biggest deal of the year. It would be like A24, relationship horror. It's about abusive relationships. They're codependent on each other, but it's the way they make it is that they're connecting physically, and you know, like it's just like an obvious metaphor kind of movie. And like now I watched it like this year, and I was just sort of like, all right, I get it. Like I'm ready for something different. I don't know if Kreger's that for me yet. I don't know if Sinners is that for me yet, but I'm ready for the next thing in horror. I like The Substance, but I didn't love that one either. So I don't know. I have an open mind, but I am over I think the A24 style stuff. We get Long Legs and stuff come out last year or maybe 2 years ago with Nicolas Cage, and I feel like that was sort of that almost felt like a throwback to like Silence of the Lambs kind of horror with a little bit of A24 in there too. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe next year we can kind of do a more full-bodied assessment of where it seems like horror is in the 2020s compared to where it was in the 2010s.
Sure, yeah. And I think now that about 25% of our content is dedicated towards horror movies specifically, like, we're going to take a little break,
Yeah.
probably. Not to say that we don't have plenty of matchups now, especially, having gone through it, and not even just horror movies, but like kind of Halloween themed movies. Initially, I wanted to end our ticket to Halloween with a matchup between Hotel Transylvania
Yeah.
and this like 1960s Rankin Bass stop motion animated movie Mad Monster Party, which is like doing the same thing where it brings all these like they're like the universal horror monsters into the same place. And you were kind of like, you really want to end on this shit?
I just wanted a little bit more of an exciting ending, I think.
Yeah, and that's fair. But it also, because I don't really like repeating directors that much because there's so many movies to talk about, cleared up Jindy Tartakovsky so that we could cover him on this upcoming episode.
The monkey's paw curls.
Yeah,
it
does.
For me.
It does.
I got out of Hotel Transylvania, but I had to review Fixed for next week, so...
Yeah.
How exciting.
One he did for the money, one he did for the passion. Your guess as to which one. What kind of, I'm curious, Tristan, because like, what other kind of takeaways did you have this past month going through our matchups?
Well, there's the broader takeaway about like the horror trends that we're talking about. There's a takeaway that we did our first collaboration with an external podcast, which I thought was very successful. You actually guested on their podcast this past month with a Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode, a 2-hour tour de force.
It's very long, yeah.
Longer than the film itself, which it was a very enjoyable episode. And you guys should check out Head on a Stick if you like horror films and wacky characters. And so I thought that was successful. I look forward, like you said, we're still a young podcast. We're still making our name. Recently, we've gotten in contact with fans that aren't people we know personally or even peripherally, people from other countries and states and stuff. So I'm excited to continue broadening our horizons and building bridges with other podcasts. I think on that note, us doing like a sub-series like we did, the horror sub-series, I think there is promise for additional sub-series in the future. Maybe not month-long ones, but 2-3 weeks where we are going through matchups which have their own relationships, but then relationships between the matchups themselves, and we're finding trends and that sort of thing. So I could definitely see that in the future for the podcast. And if anybody has any ideas, let us know, because I think it was really exciting, and I liked making broader points. I'm not necessarily looking into being like a long form like podcast where you have to like listen to every episode in order to get it. I like that we're episodic. I like that, next week we're jumping into raunchy dog comedies and then the week after we're jumping into like 1980s like coming of age Breaking Bad kind of movies. And like that's great. There's no expectation on the viewer to have to keep up. But I think in limited circumstances, I definitely see that as something that you and I tap into.
Yeah, I think, if you have suggestions, let us know. If you have your finger on the pulse of a trend that you feel like hasn't been highlighted enough, and there are matchups we can kind of follow, like trace it through, then by all means. I know that like when award season comes around, like I'm a sucker for the Oscars. I know they suck. It's always a shit show of a ceremony, and they pick often the most obvious movies. And I did very well on my predictions last year. I have my scorecard. I'm looking right at it, and I did very well because I just doubled down on Anora. But when that comes around, I wouldn't mind doing some sort of like road to the Oscars thing. In past years, I have tried to watch any and every movie that is nominated for an Oscar. And that almost ruined movies for me, but God damn it, I'll do it again if that's what it takes. I always have fun with those, but
yeah, we always have fun with stuff like that. And I do not take the Oscars as seriously as you guys do, but I do enjoy making my little ballot and getting it laminated and stuff.
Yeah.
Which do you laminate the ballot in the laminator I got you for Christmas a couple
You
years
better
ago?
believe I put that thing to good use.
Look at that. Look at that. That's a gift from the heart, folks. I got him a laminator.
Yeah, he knew me. We did live together for a year, which is where my laminator broke during our time together.
Yeah, that is such a weirdly like personal but impersonal gift.
I used to use them more when I did those like, hand-drawn director trading cards, but
I should find my because I have like a rubber band. It's probably like in my drawer or something, and like lay them out and post them on our Instagram so people can see those.
no, they're kind of cringy.
No, they're not cringy at all. They're great. I actually use my Ingmar Bergman one as a bookmark when I read. So
Yeah, that's the only practical usage for these. Yeah, I read No Country for Old Men, and I used my own Coen Brothers trading card as the bookmark for that.
That's perfect. Yeah, I don't know how to play the game. Is there a game? Did you invent a game for these cards?
It's like a standard attack and defense. I don't want to talk about my creepy little trading cards. It was fun. I like to draw. I like to think of myself as a creative person a lot of the time. But yeah,
you are a creative person.
Oh shucks. Oh nuts.
Should we? I guess we can kind of wrap up here and maybe give a sneak peek for the next month of stuff. We have an ambitious plan for November. I feel.
Yeah. So I say this. We're just gonna go off the heels of recording this coming Friday's episode, Dirty Dogs. But I kind of allude to the fact that towards the end of the year, I wanted to do some matchups that contained movies that came out this year, so that we could talk a little bit and lead up to. We're going to do a year-end retrospective, so I don't know if we're going to do like superlatives or if we're going to do like a top 10. We haven't hammered out the details, but those plans kind of fell by the wayside because we started planning to have guest appearances with people that we're really excited about, because we have this catalog of matchups that we show people who are interested, and a lot of the time they'll gravitate towards something very specific, and they'll be like, when can you have me on? And we'll say, oh, we got the next couple of weeks planned out, maybe in a month or so, and they'll say, okay, I'm in. And we put them on our calendar, and we are booked through the end of the year. We know every episode we're going to record until January, which is honestly exciting.
I think it's exciting, yeah, and we have some ambitious plans, like I was saying. We are going to record an episode in a van, for example.
Yeah, I think we might set up outside of the van, but we are going to do our first video podcast here in a couple of weeks with a long-term friend of mine, Rob Simmons. We have a specific kind of van life matchup. I won't say the movies because you probably could guess them based on how many. You could
probably guess at least one of them.
Yeah,
I would imagine. Yeah. And we have some holiday themed matchups, obviously, as we get into Thanksgiving and Christmas. We have a Star Wars themed matchup that I'm very excited about. You guys get to hear me dominate the conversation by talking about Star Wars.
It's about time. Yeah,
3+ hours. You're gonna have to cut a lot out of that episode. So I'm a big Star Wars fan. So no, it's exciting, man. I'm really enjoying the podcast. I hope the listeners are enjoying this kind of behind the scenes, a little more casual, just you and I talking about our passion project right now.
Yeah, and we're very open about it too. I mean, a lot of our listeners are people we know personally still. Like we said, we're very young. And so we're very open to talking about the process, quote unquote. Like we'll if you tell us you want us to cover something, we will make room for it. I mean, I like to think that we proved that with Hannah, with your request this past month. We know that if somebody will really get something special out of it, then hell yeah, we're more than happy to cover it. And part of the fun, I think, with Hard Ticket is like just kind of thinking about like what to match these movies up with. It's a matchup podcast. We're not saying when we compare these movies like necessarily one is better than the other one. I don't want people to think that like we think movies should all be compared to one another. I understand that the premise of the podcast might give that impression. But I told Tristan earlier that I like talking academically about movies. This podcast has spanned my first semester back in school. I started grad school back in August, and it's a journalism program. A lot of it's very discussion based. I have a seminar class, and talking academically is something that I really enjoy. And I think because movies are a passion of mine and definitely a passion of yours, Tristan, like comparing what movies set out to do, what one might do more successfully than the other, it is always like a matter of opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Always matter of opinion, and we're always you could never reduce like a film to comparing it to another film, you know, and something that I talked to you about when we were first talking about like starting the podcast was I was like, I don't want it to be debate club. I don't want it to be like a versus, you know, an all out brawl kind of thing. What I like to think is that when we have our discussions, even though that might be more exciting, you know, that might be more of like what the algorithm wants us to do is be like pitch these, you know, fight,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. It's not movie versus movie. That's an entirely different podcast. Actually, that podcast exists.
That exists, yeah. But it's more just like we are trying to dig up surprising similarities and interesting contrasts, like meaningful contrasts, to hopefully help you, the viewer, and I know it's definitely helped me sort of dig up new things to appreciate about the movies that we already know and love. We do have the whole gimmick, the hard ticket gimmick, where you have to pick which one you're going to watch at the end. But again, it's in no means meant to be like this is definitively a better movie, objectively a better movie, and all that stuff. It's just personal preference, and we try to keep it casual like that. So
yeah,
pitch us whatever you want, and don't get offended if we don't pick it. It's nothing personal.
Yeah. The matchups themselves can be hard tickets sometimes. Are we going to do Hostel and Eurotrip, or are we going to do Hostel and House of a Thousand Corpses? That was a hard enough ticket. But we're having fun, and if you guys are enjoying listening, tell your friends about us. Make sure you give us a like on Spotify. Give us a follow on Instagram, Blue Sky. You can follow us at Hard Ticket Pod, all lowercase, all one word. I say it every week, but I'll say it again because I mean, if you're listening to this episode, you probably already do. But yeah, and then Tristan made the email where you can reach out to us directly.
Yeah, I'm doing my part. hardticketpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any requests or any questions, you want to be on the podcast, you want to send us hate mail, whatever, you can send it through there. And don't forget to smash that motherfucking subscribe button.
Boom! Yeah. But thanks for listening, guys. Not just to this little bonus episode, but to the podcast in general. It honestly means a hell of a lot. I know it's a movie podcast, but we
know we're two white guys doing it.
It's nothing out of the box, but we do enjoy doing it. It is, like you said, Tristan, a passion project of ours, and it means a hell of a lot when you guys listen. So, thank you. Thank you guys, and we'll see you this just in a couple days for our next full-on matchup episode. So,
Dirty Dogs.
You don't want to miss it.
Woof.